I like the way Kelly King is sitting ready for class to start. Thank you for being here tonight. I know that most of you are not here because you particularly wanted to be here, but you're in a 201, 301, 401, or you're a student teacher, and as a part of those classes, we want to help you grow professionally. Whether you're in some of those classes that I just mentioned, you're doing a professional growth plan. Some of those classes you're not. 201 you don't, but I think 301 and 401, and I know student teaching you do. TEL is a part of your professional growth. I have a boss here at Asbury, and he requires that I submit to him my professional growth plan every year. It's something I started when I was a student here in 1971, and it's ongoing. So we hope you enjoy yourself. We know that your time is valuable. I'm saying this a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but we tell the speakers that if they're not done at 8 o'clock, that we have told you you can leave. Now, I don't really want you to get up and leave at 8 o'clock if the speaker's not done, but I do want you to feel comfortable if you need to leave at 8 o'clock because you're an athlete and you've got practice or you've got a music thing that you need to do, that after 8 o'clock, as long as you can do it quietly and you really have a reason for leaving, you have my blessing to do that. Now, it is very rare that a speaker runs over at 8, especially when they're sitting right here hearing me tell you that they have to be done at 8 o'clock. Again, my name is Prof. Rao, and I teach 401 in student teaching. So most of you don't get to know me until the semester before you student teach. But I want to tell you that I love you, that I'm already praying for you, that you're in the greatest university in the state of Kentucky when it comes to preparing you to be a teacher. I'm going to guess that every one of our current student teachers would tell you that they've heard that over and over and over again in their schools. You are very highly sought after because you graduated from Asbury. Because people know that we have high expectations. Principals literally know that we make you come to things like this and that you've had good training, that we haven't let you just slide through the program. So I'm excited that you're here. You have a group of students that are going to take over in the next couple minutes, and then you're not going to hear from me anymore. If you'd like to become involved in the leadership for this organization, TEL, we would invite you to connect with any of the students that will be participating tonight. So they'd love to have your help. TEL will only be as good as the students want it to be. I'm just one of 2 advisors, and I give them advice, but it's up to the students to make this a good organization. And one of the best education students that we have is Madison Lee, and she's... Oh, there you go.
Thanks, Dr. Rao. Means the world.
Trying to set you up for success here, Maddie.
Maddie, stand off. Because I think we only have Dr. Rao's stuff included. This time. Okay, more this time. Okay, so I'm going to read you all a little devotion. It has just been really encouraging to me because I know life can be really crazy sometimes. And so this has just really encouraged me to still be a light even in the midst of times that are really hard. It says, I am the light that shines on in the darkness, for the darkness has never overpowered it, and it never will. When multiple problems are closing in on you, the light of my presence may seem like a dim memory. If you are feeling distant from me, it's time for you to stop everything and pour out your heart to me. Carve out some time and space to talk with me about your problems and your feelings. Let me help you carry your burdens and show you the way forward. No matter how much darkness you see in the world around you, my light continues to shine on, for it is infinitely more powerful. Because you are my child, this light shines not only upon you, but also within you. You live in the midst of a broken world, and this is the perfect backdrop for you to shine as a light to the world. Take time to bask in my radiant presence. Let my boundless energy recharge your strength, so you can blaze boldly in the darkness around you. So that was just a big inspiration to me, that even in the midst of the craziness of college, in the midst of the craziness of the world, that it's still so important to be a light, especially in the schools and to the people around us. And so the only way we can really be that light is through having Jesus in us, and he's able to shine through any amount of darkness that we feel. So I'm just going to pray for us, and then we're going to continue on with the TEL meeting. So bow your heads with me, please. Dear Jesus, I just thank you for this group of people. I thank you that you are equipping us to be educators in this world, and I know it's so easy to be discouraged by the darkness that we see in our children's lives and in our lives as well, and just in the world around us in general. So I just pray that you will use us to be a light in the world, and to help to overpower that darkness through you. I pray that as we go into this night that you will just help us to learn a lot of very useful information that will help us in the future, help us to be attentive, and help us to realize that all that we are doing is for you. In your name I pray, amen.
Okay, so our upcoming home meetings, our next meeting will be October 17th, and then the last one that we'll have for this semester is November 14th. So just keep those in mind. And then we're supposed to have 2 professors introduce themselves tonight, but it doesn't look like Dr. Highland's here. But Barbara Hamilton, Dr. Hamilton, can come on up and introduce her.
So I graduated from Asbury a while ago with a secondary education English degree. I've enjoyed teaching mostly in middle school, a little bit of high school French, and English at West Desmond Middle School just down the road. So I'm super excited to be here, and I'm teaching methods. So I know just a few of you from 301, and then I'm going to teach in the 200 block soon. So I'm looking forward to getting to know a few more of you. I take a trip to DC every once in a while. Invite me, so we have a blast. If you've not heard about that trip, you should ask. And then I teach a little bit in the graduate. So thanks for having me.
Thank you. And now Leanne's going to introduce our speaker for tonight.
Okay. So I have the privilege of introducing Miss Kelly Sampson. So I have had the opportunity to not only know Miss Sampson in the professional realm, but also in the personal realm. Miss Sampson embodies what it means to be an effective teacher and live out God's calling in her life. When she was a principal, I watched her care so deeply about each and every one of her students, while understanding the importance of educating the whole child. This passion is what led Miss Sampson to dream up, develop, and see through the creation of the Jessamine Early Learning Village. I don't know if any of you have had placements there, but it's in Jessamine County, and that school is all thanks to this woman right here. I may be biased because I consider her my second mom, but I could not be more proud to introduce her tonight. So please join me in welcoming Miss
I think it's tempting just to show my belly like you did, but I'm not going to do that. I'm so glad to be here with you guys tonight, and it truly does take a village. How many of you have ever been to the Jessamine Early Learning Village? Oh, that's good. We've got a few more. We've got to get you out there. It truly does take a village, and I appreciate that, but it was a huge team of people that came together that had the vision for the Early Learning Village here in Jessamine County. And it's that group of people and that team that made it what it is, a school for preschool and kindergarten, and serves all the children in Jessamine County. Went from a school we started in the year 2000 with about 180 preschoolers. It quickly grew to 500, 700, 800, and I think the enrollment today is 964 preschool and kindergarten students all in one school. So if you haven't been there, I really encourage you to do so. You can imagine I'm all about the little guys. I've taught preschool, kindergarten, first, second, third, and then was curriculum resource administrator at Nicholasville Elementary. That's where I started in Jessamine County. So also worked with intermediate kiddos, and then somehow became the early childhood director, and somehow we got the vision of the Early Learning Village, and the Early Learning Village came about. After 30 years in education, I decided to retire. Like Dr. Ryle maybe tried to retire. Mine lasted 2 weeks. How'd you do? Did you get more than 2 weeks?
Mine lasted 6 months.
You got 6 months, yeah. We are same personality type, and we are not good at that. We did not do well. University of Kentucky offered me a full-time position in the IECE program, the Early Childhood Program. Anyone know what IECE stands for? All right. I love talking to people that don't know about this. It's interdisciplinary early childhood education. It's actually a dual certification where students, it's a teacher certification, and they can teach birth through kindergarten. And it is, any of you ever heard of First Steps? Okay, great. First Steps, a lot of our IECE graduates work in the First Steps program, and they serve children with disabilities from birth through 3. Go into the home. It is a great job. You set your own schedule. It's something that a lot of, we have a lot of actually elementary ed majors graduate and come back and do their graduate work in IECE because it gives them that flexibility to teach 0 through elementary. They can teach First Steps, they can teach in the preschool programs, so on and so forth. So that's what I've been doing. This is my 4th year at the University of Kentucky. How many of you are doing your student teaching right now? All right. Would you go give all of them one of these? You all really need a 100 grand bar because I know what kind of day you had. Now, the rest of you, I'm sorry, you're going to have opportunity to get a candy bar here soon because I do believe that chocolate keeps us going, and when it's 7:15, you need some chocolate no matter what you've been doing. But if you did student teaching today, you get chocolate first. You get chocolate first. It's absolutely necessary. So I was asked to talk a little bit today about how do you get the job. Those of you that are student teaching and graduating in December, yeah? Your resume, it needs to be burning right now. You need to be working on that resume, and I'm going to wear my principal hat. That I was principal for 14 years, and I'm going to wear the principal hat, and I'm going to kind of coach you through some questions that you might get through the interview process. Now, some of you that are freshmen, sophomores, you're like, oh, that's so far away. Let me tell you, it's not. It will come quickly. And the thing you need to remember is every time you walk into a school building and you are doing an observation, every time you do a practical experience, somebody watching. Every time. You actually are starting your interview process now, super early. So I happen to be the one that supervises all of our student teachers in the IECE program. The IECE program is, again, I said, a dual certification, so all of our teachers are certified to teach special education in the young children's classrooms, 0 through 5, and they're also certified to be the regular classroom teacher, again, through kindergarten. So as we do our seminars, which I think you all had a student teaching seminar this afternoon, one of the seminars that we do is resume building and interview skills. So I'm going to share some of that with you today. So here's the first thing you need to know. Typically at the Early Learning Village, when we would have a job opening, we would go through 20 plus resumes. That's not uncommon. So as you're going through those resumes, the interview team, the administrator, I have to be honest, there's a 30-second rule. That's about how long we're going to look at your resume, about 30 seconds to start with. Now once we decide we want to get you in, oh, we saw some things grabbed us, then we're going to look a little more closely. But when you're developing your resume, you want to think about these things. First of all, we're going to look at your first page. I'm going to recommend, it's just me, that you keep it one page if you possibly can. One page if you possibly can. I'm going to look at the first listing under each section, and I'm going to talk a little bit about those sections. But we're going to look at the first thing. What's going to catch my eye? What's going to catch it? And then we're going to look at the first bullet under a job. If you've worked somewhere or you're practicum student teaching, I'm going to talk about how you should break that down to catch the eye of the person that's reviewing it. We're going to look at those bullets, and we're going to talk about how you can set those bullets up. And then anything bolded, underlined, and italicized. here's the kicker. Don't italicize, underline, and bold everything on that page. I've seen it. Not kidding. Or I've had friends that have used different colors. So there's a little hint for you. So there's two types of resumes that you might do. If you are a student, recent graduate, so this is going to be most of you, you're going to do the chronological. This is recommended. That's the option you would use. You're going to list the experiences in chronological order. We're going to talk about that in reverse chronological order. Some of you may be making a career change. And if you're making a career change, then you would use the functional. And again, I ran this, the quality of your PowerPoint isn't fantastic. At UK, our copiers are older than me. I'm not kidding. I don't know why that is. I'm so excited about all this new technology up here. That's really cool. But there is room for you to write notes. So hopefully you'll be able to refer back to this. So if you are doing a functional resume, then you're going to categorize skills and accomplishments by the function instead of the work order. So I would recommend that for you. So limit to 1 page if possible. Your margins, you want to go 0.75 to 1.25. Because you're trying to get it all on 1 page, 1-inch margins, really good, really recommended. About 1 inch on both sides. You're going to use fonts as like Times. You don't want to get any smaller than 10. Those of us in administration, interview teams, leadership team, our eyes are old. We need to be able to see it. So you don't want it to get any smaller than 10. And again, there's that 30-second rule, so we're moving quickly. I've already told you this, don't overuse the italics, don't overuse the bolding, and use keywords that grab the reader. And I'm going to talk about what some of those keywords are that you're going to use. You want to have a heading, again, that grabs the attention. There's a couple of examples in your PowerPoint. You're going to give the full name. I do want to point out, too, I gave you an example. This isn't the best resume in the whole world, but if you're like me and like my students, they're like, just give me an example. Just show me one, and I can build on that. So you can kind of keep this. I call this tools for your tool bag. This is something you may want to slip in behind the PowerPoint so you can go and then build on. At least gives you a structure, a skeleton to work on. A lot of folks, we talked to the Career Center, and they said, you know, sometimes people aren't even putting their address anymore. You know, if you have your cell number, you have your email, it's really up to you. One of the things I do want to point out on the example that I gave you, though, notice that she has a portfolio website. I love this. And on the example at the top, it'll have you, be sure you kind of highlight that or note that, because that's something you really might want to think about. There is nothing more powerful than being able to go to that website, see the applicant's work, but what they also often do is put a clip of themselves teaching. If I can see you teach, more than likely you're going to get an interview. You're going to get to the next level. So something you really want to think about, and that's something you want to work on now. You may not be in your student teaching right now, but you may be next year. Are you getting, because you set things up, if you're doing some observation practicum hours and you're getting in there and teaching some lessons, videotape yourself. Start to get that information. Not all of the resumes that you use are going to include an objective. It's really optional, but you can change it from time to time. You can click the next, it's going to give us an example. So if you are, I'm looking for a position in English or social studies at the high school level, that may be your objective. A vocal general music education position. You want to be clear, you want to be relevant, you want to be concise, and you change it as often as you need to. And again, an objective, it's optional. You don't have to put that. You want to list your degrees in reverse chronological order, of course. university, city, state. Graduation day, be sure you include your GPA. And I'll go on and tell you right now, be careful never to stretch the 3.9 does not round up to 4.0. Don't try that. You want to be real. 3.8.75, yeah, whatever that. So any additional education, anything, awards, honors, this is where you put your scholarships, relevant classes. Have you had study abroad experience? Have you been on trips that were educational trips? That speaks to adaptability. That's really, really good.
What about if you are lucky enough to be in a district and you've been invited to district-wide trainings like the January trips?
Yes.
Is that where it goes?
Yes, we're actually going to talk about skills, relevant skills too, and that would be where that goes. Okay, absolutely. Okay, so your student teaching experience, this is for most of you, unless you're changing careers, this is probably the most relevant of your resume. So you're going to list the school, the location, your title, during the student teaching, what were you doing, dates of work, and include, this is the part people leave out, how many students were there? If you did intermediate, high school, middle school, how many different classes did you get to teach? We know that you were a student teacher with a particular lead teacher, but what all did you do? What grade levels did you work with? And what subjects did you cover? And then we're going to get more specific in just a minute about things that you'll do beyond that. So you may want to do student teaching and practicum experience. So you'll probably have two different areas. You may want to put professional experience and student teaching experience. I wouldn't pick more than two because, again, you're trying to hold this down to one page, right? You want to be sure that the reader knows you're doing student teaching when you're talking about this, and you want to use terms and language that are relevant. ARCs, IEPs, you can use the lingo, right? Everything that you're doing in the schools right now. Here's those bullets. Those bullets are the eye catchers. This is what administration and interview teams, this is what they look at. Be sure you start each bullet with an action verb. Make it powerful, right? You want to say created, planned, persuaded, presented, administered, assisted, analyzed, directed, increased, organized, promoted, prepared. Have you prepared any lesson plans yet? You should be going, yes. Prepared. You prepared them. Have you analyzed any assessment data yet? Yes, absolutely. Talk about that. Those are skills that we're looking for. You may have prepared the students for map testing, right? Lots and lots of work. So focus on accomplishments. Emphasize transferable skills. Yes, I did this in 4th grade during my student teaching, but would it be applicable to kindergarten, 1st, 2nd, 3rd? Yeah. The lesson planning, yes, it's a skill that you have. It's something you've learned to do. You did assessment in 3rd, but would that assessment also be the same assessment that's being done, just a different level in 4th and 5th? Same in middle school, high school. So think about transferable skills. Use quantifiable information when appropriate. Give percentages. We want to see the evidence. We want to see the data. So give that to us in that form under those bullets. Talk about your professional experience. If you have had paid work or unpaid work that's relevant. Have you worked at a summer camp? Is there a program? Do you work at the church nursery? Do you get paid or don't get paid? Do you do this type of work that will feed into? Is it maybe how you became interested in teaching in the first place? Did you start babysitting when you were 14? Maybe earlier. So put employment dates down and then do some job description bullets. Activities. This is super important. Professional associations. Are you a member of KEA? My students are in AEYC. We have student organizations on campus. What student organizations are you in? Do you do volunteer work? What about community involvement? This is where those would be listed. When you list your activities, put the name of the group. Be certain that you put the dates of involvement, just the year. And then any position that you held, any skills acquired, and any accomplishments while you were involved in those activities. Try to qualify by listing the number of hours you volunteered. You're all going to scrunch your eyes. You're like, oh my goodness, I don't know how many hours I volunteered. So you may want to start logging that, thinking about that now, especially if those of you that aren't quite to student teaching or methods yet, as you're doing these things, keep a journal. This is your relevant skills. This is where you're going to put that training. You're going to put, if you happen to be fluent in another language, that's a biggie. We're looking for that constantly. What about computer knowledge? Technology is embedded in everything we do now. Really highlight those skills. Experience or training in special areas related to the field. And I just put some reminders. You'd be sure if you haven't really been spotlighting your lesson planning strategies. Have you helped to develop an IEP? Have you been through training? What about classroom management? I know you've had lots of training on that. Have you been through safe crisis management? Have you been through those type trainings? If so, list them. Multiple assessments. Anything that you've done, training in special areas, if you've been lucky enough to get with the district and get into trainings, be sure you list those. And then any certifications you have. You may be CPR certified. That's important. Anything, things that you may not even think about, you want to plug those in. Now I'll tell you things not to include. You know, what not to wear. Isn't that a show? This is what not to do. What not to do. Don't talk about your age. Don't do that. And your marital status. Do not need to include those. Okay? Don't do that. Pictures. Typically, you don't want to put your picture on your resume. It happens, and some districts may even say, oh, include a picture. This is the way you get around that. If you decide you want to do that portfolio site and you have yourself teaching, well, they see you. So it's all good, and they see, most importantly, how you're interacting with kiddos. So that's a really good way to get around that. Be really careful about the clip art. Don't use clip art. Just don't do it. Don't need it. Anything high school or earlier, you don't need to bring that in. They're going to they want to know about your experiences at Asbury. What have you done here? Everything that's happened since high school is what they're interested in. Typically, we recommend that references just be a whole other sheet. And often, you want to just kind of hang on to your reference list. And at the end of the interview, they say, well, would you have some references, or would you mind if we call your references? First of all, that's when you do the happy dance, because they're like, oh, yeah, they're interested. They're absolutely interested, because they're not going to ask for them if they're not. And so that's when you give them the reference page, and it's totally a separate page, and that's fine. Don't list hobbies or interests that aren't related to the position. You know, if you're a rock climber and you just love it and you go every weekend, that is great, but they don't need to know that unless they say, and they could during the interview, you know, what do you do with your spare time? What do you love? Then you could talk about it, but you don't need to list it. These are always my favorite. Broad personality statements, you know, listing in the resume, I'm a hard worker. Or this one is the other one, and I don't know, Dr. Ryle, if you feel this way, but I just love children. I just love them. I love them. We know you love them, and we're so glad you love them, but you do not need to put that in your resume. We got that, okay. Okay, we talked about don't tweak that truth. You know, that 3.9 does not round up to a 4.0. But a 3.9 is really good. It's really, really good. And be careful to use the given title for jobs. We become very creative when we're developing our resumes, and we might give, you know, the garbage taker outer a name like, you know, service manager in the kitchen area. I don't know, but it gets really kind of funny. Okay, so questions about building your resume? Anything?
You said to list our highest degree first. Does that remain true if the degree is not applicable to education?
Good question. I would still list it. What about you, Dr. Ryle? Would you still list it even? I would put the one that's applicable to education first, but I would get it in there because you're changing careers.
Yeah, what
What do you think?
I would agree with everything that Mrs. Sampson has told you tonight. I would encapsulate some of what she's told you in this. What makes you different? What makes you better? What makes you special?
Absolutely.
Because she's right, it's 5 or 10 seconds. And I know you want to hear that, but a principal's going to look through 200 applications, give it 5 or 10 seconds at best. And you want to get off that pile of 200 onto that pile of 10.
Absolutely.
So what makes you different? That's why she's telling you not to put on there you love kids. Everybody loves kids. What doesn't make you different? You only have one page. What sets you apart? What experiences have you had? You have children. Are you divorced? Have you been to Mexico? The fact that you're from Asbury will help some of you. What is it that sets you apart from everybody else when she's talking about the objective? Same thing. You don't want to put up there, I want to be a 5th grade, 4th grade, 3rd grade teacher. Everybody wants that. If you're going to put an objective, your objective is to use your talents and skills that you've learned over the years to make a difference in the lives of children. That's the kind of objective that will catch a principal's eye, not that you want to be a 3rd grade teacher. So yes, I would put, for her, she's going to have a ton of stuff that sets her apart.
Yours might have to be 2 pages.
My other question would be the foreign languages. What level of proficiency do we need to be fluent to include them? If, say, I can understand most things in French, but I'm certainly not fluent.
I would be totally honest about that, saying I have a high level of understanding of French, high level of understanding. And you could even put, I would admire this, but not completely fluent. And that, I mean, that's better than 99.9% of the other staff because they don't know French at all.
When you get to student teaching, we'll talk a lot more about this, but you do one template resume, but the resumes you send buildings are different for each building. You do not send the same resume to every principal. Because you've gotten on their webpage and you've looked at their school improvement plan, and if you know that they're looking, that math is one of their school improvement goals, then you're going to put things on your resume that you've had experience in math. If it's reading, if it's higher level thinking, if it's gifted kids, you're going to tailor your resume for that school and that position.
Absolutely, absolutely. Do you have a question?
Everything that she's told you is spot on, it's perfect. I would agree with her about the picture. Unless a picture of you will help you get a job, don't put it on there.
You say yeah?
Now, wait a minute. A picture of me isn't likely going to get me a job. No. Is a picture of this lady right here going to get her a job? Absolutely. She's going to get a job. She's a very talented English teacher. She's traveled. She's got great experiences, but a picture is going to help her. A picture of Mrs. Sampson is going to help her, is it not? Doesn't she look attractive? Somebody. So I would say this. It's going to help. If you're a male in the elementary school, you've got to put a picture on there. That's going to help you, isn't it? Because principals are looking for male elementary. So that's why I say you've got to tailor your resume. Get on the Asbury website, go to the Career and Calling, click on Resources. There's a 31-page document in there called Resume 101. It's 31 pages, has some more resumes like she showed you, some templates, some letters. One of the things that you have as Asbury is access to that.
That's awesome. You had questions.
So at Asbury, we have 3 different clinical experiences.
Yes.
One professor recommended to include all 3 of those in addition to our student teaching on our resume. But I feel like that's kind of lengthy, so I just want to know if your suggestion was about that.
Remember when we looked at that slide, there was one that said professional?
Right.
Right. And you could plug it in under there. You could plug it. So if you wanted to put in any type of experience like that, but I would focus on student teaching
Okay.
and practicum, the things, because you're gonna put the number of hours, if possible, that
Right.
you put in.
Okay. So like, I guess my question was, how many, so if we include the, different clinical experiences, there's like so many hours for each one. Do we also need to like identify what we were doing in each one? Cause the different ones have different
Okay.
points. Like one focuses on just like methods, one focuses on more.
What if you took all those clinical hours and you said something like, I did X number of clinical hours covering areas such as,
Okay.
and then just hit, everything that you did in those, or at least the highlights, because I'm going to look at that, we're gonna look at that, and it feeds right into, and then came the practicum, and then came the student teaching. But the number of hours is probably what will catch our eye,
Okay.
the number of hours.
I have one more.
Okay.
My last one. The district trainings came up, and it appears that they could fit into several categories.
They could. What you're going to do, when you finally get to the last heading that we were talking about, can you go back to relevant skills? This is where we talked about training. This is where you want to look at the rest of your resume and go, what did I leave out? What did I not get in there? Because if you've talked about, you've been to training for lesson planning, or you've been to training for behavior management up in the student teaching experience, then you don't want it to be redundant, and you don't want to do it a second time. So what did you leave out? Okay?
So about the, website.
Yes.
So would we just make up our own website and then maybe like put some of our K-tip lesson plans on there?
I would put my lesson plans, now, if you put on that site your self-teaching, then you need to be certain that you have approved that with the teacher that you're working with, and you have a media release on the children that are in the video.
Well, we have to make a video for student teaching anyway, so we'll have all that.
Oh,
So
you've
we
already
can
done that,
video.
and that is typically what we would see just dropped in on the website.
How many, we've done lots of lesson plans.
You just pick your best,
Just your best, like maybe
2, 3
two or
max.
three? Okay.
They're gonna watch one.
I'm going to be applying to be a high school art teacher.
Okay.
And, I was wondering if one of the things that would be relevant to include on the website would be like a portfolio of some of the work that I've
Absolutely.
done. Okay.
And when you walk in, we're going to talk about interviews now. I'm going to give you some questions that I promise you're going to be asked. When you walk in, have that portfolio with you. Have a portfolio with you. That's something, it's a great lead in, because I truly want to see something. My interview team always wanted to see something. We love pictures. We love portfolios. We want to see you in action. Bring your best work. Bring it in with you to an interview when you get it. Okay, here we go. You got to look good. Okay? You have to look good. You have to walk in looking good. Okay? So, you're ready to interview. You've got that resume done. It was so good that the interview team looked at it and said, oh, this one right here. So, that means you get to go shopping. So you went shopping and you look good. Okay, here we go. You do not look like this. Back to the what not to wear. None of that. None of that. And you absolutely do not sit like that. bringing the do's and don'ts, because you know that this is the way that we wait for our interview. Okay. The most important person in the school, who is it?
The secretary.
It's the secretary. Who do you see first when you walk through the door and you're sitting in that chair waiting? Yeah, she's watching you. And she gives us a full report. What you did. Were you on your phone? No, you're not on your phone. You are waiting, and you are waiting. So excited, smiling. You're sweating. It is okay. Nobody can see that under that cute jacket. Nobody can see it. It is okay. But you are just being so inviting. So, Dr. Rowell already talked about this, but you have to research the school before your interview. You get on that website. You find their school report cards. You look at the district website. You find out what their initiatives are, just as he said. What is it that's in their improvement plan? What are they stressing about? Because you speak to it. Because those are the type things. What are you most interested? Well, they're struggling with math scores. I love math. And I've got to tell you, some of the best feedback I got during my student teaching was during this certain math lesson that I was teaching. Yeah. You need to know everything before you go in. You talk to anyone and everyone affiliated with that school that you're interested in before you go to that interview. So when you're in the interview, and this is really hard to do, focus your actions on yourself, as much as you can, and not on everyone else. You're going to be very engaged, but we sometimes get a little freaked out because we think we can read people, and we really can't read people sometimes. So just think about, how am I coming across? I'm sure you know this, but you realize that only 7% of any message is conveyed through words. I really could communicate a lot to you right now and not say anything, right? Our body language is huge. 38% is through our tone, through vocal elements, and 55% is through our face, through the gestures that we're using, through our body language. I have to remind you that the kids that you're teaching, you're a mirror to them, and everything you do, from the way you look at them to the way you move your body around them, they're reading you too. So during an interview, remember these percentages. They're super important. So I love this. Don't they look sweet? I mean, that's an easy interview right there. Keep your strengths in the forefront. Wow, everybody looks so nice. Ask for clarification. If a question is asked, especially when we're nervous, don't hesitate to say, would you mind to repeat the question, or did you mean by, and there's no problem with that. There's never a problem with that. And don't be afraid of silence. Are you a nervous talker? If it's quiet, you just keep on talking just like this all the time. And you just kind of say something you don't even know what you really said. You're like, oh my gosh, what did I say when I walked out of there? A lot of people really struggle with that, especially when you're nervous. It's okay. Let it be silent. What that allows you to do is kind of get your mind together or wrapped around a question. A lot of times they're just thinking about your answers, and they're thinking, what direction should we ask more questions about this or about that? So give them think time, just like we give our kids think time. Okay, now this is when it gets hard. They don't look as nice now. They look a little, in this stuff right here, that would scare me. So you have to stay positive even if you're sweating, even if it's really getting kind of scary. That's a bad setup when they're, all on one side, you feel a little ganged up on, but there's interviews like that sometimes, but just try to stay positive. You can do it. So here's some questions, all right? So this is what we're going to go back to the chocolate. So I want you to, I'm going to, just as we do with the kiddos, put the answer in your head. So you're in the interview. You made it that far. You look good. And this is typically one of the first questions. Why did you choose the career of teaching? Why? What drew you to teaching? Put it in your head. Who wants to share? All right. Why did you choose? Oh, I can't go up there. Oh, but you do.
No, you do.
You can have another one. You student taught today. All right, so share your answer. We just asked you that question in an interview.
I have always wanted to be a teacher because I think that kids are so important because they are our future. And I would love to make a positive impact and help them grow and give them the strength and the courage they need to become the leaders of tomorrow.
Excellent answer. Excellent answer. That would have perked, I can tell you, perked me up. I'd go, mm-hmm. Let's go to the next question. So, what's been those of you that are student teaching right now, if you are not student teaching right now, raise your hand if you have been able to teach a lesson, okay? Okay, so we have quite a few more. All right, you guys are included in this too. The rest of you, it's coming. Listen to the answers. So, what's been your most challenging experience this far? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when I teach, sometimes the students, especially when they teach multiple classes in a day, it takes them longer to understand the material that I might have planned for.
Okay.
So accommodate to the needs of students if they just don't get it the way I introduced it the first time is very difficult.
Excellent. So, differentiation. He's using that education needs that I said I want you to be sure you include in the resume and in the interview. You know, I am learning how to differentiate for the students. That's a big antenna goes up. That's what we want. We want teachers who differentiate. We want teachers who develop their lesson plans and they've planned for extensions for those kiddos that are blowing it out of the water, and they've planned for the kiddos that need adaptations and modifications before they even teach the lesson. You're learning that. Awesome. Anyone else have a challenging situation they want to share?
Within my clinical experience, I've encountered a number of students with special behavioral needs.
Yes.
But one in particular was a student with ODD, and learning to walk away from his argumentative tendencies rather than engaging in them was certainly a challenge that semester.
Any administrator would want to hear that, because if you have conquered that, if you have conquered knowing behavior management well enough to know when attention-seeking behaviors, when they're there, you don't give the attention. It's like, yes, we teach courses on that, right? That's really good. Okay, so what instructional strategies have you used and said, wow, that really worked?
One of the biggest instructional strategies that I ended up using was differentiating the kind of instruction. So explaining it verbally, going through slides, and then actually showing the process with the document camera, using the technology, and having many different learning styles for the students to observe was really helpful for them.
Perfect answer. What did he just highlight? Technology, learning styles, and differentiation. Bam! All in one answer. Very, very well done. That was great. If you can get all that, I mean, that was crafted. So, if you can get all that in your answer, well done. So, describe your classroom management plan. Okay. We're stepping. Okay. Okay, here we go. So think about your classroom management plan. What percentage of the time is it effective? What do you think? Ready?
I think that I'll use a lot of overall teaching because it affects and meets the needs of every student. And the most importantly, it would spend a lot of time to make it effective, especially at the beginning of the class, at the beginning of the year. We have a couple of weeks of routines and all those different things.
Good.
But if
if it's not working, we'll have a reteach on that specific thing that's not working, so that it becomes custom and routine, so that we have no question of what my expectations or their expectations might be, so we can move on into learning, and it doesn't mean it's not even
Excellent. So you have in your response talked about routines. I hear systems. We want to hear routines. We want to hear systems and reteach. We want to hear reteach. When something isn't effective, if the behavior management's not working, how are we trying to reteach it, change expectations? What is it we're doing? So you're problem solving and you're showing in your answer you can do that. Excellent. Anyone else? I saw a lot of response with that question. How's behavior management going? Is it challenging? Is it one of the most challenging things you do in the day? Sure it is. Because if behavior management isn't in place, you don't do a lot of teaching, do you? Makes it really tough. So behavior management, classroom management, guarantee you it will be in your interview. So think ahead, think ahead. And the more experience you get, the more success you're going to find, right? I promise. How do you know your students are learning?
I don't need another chocolate. I know my students are learning because I'm constantly assessing them formatively as well as
Yes.
substantively. And I'm checking up with walking around, listening to them when you're constantly having class discussions. I'm calling on students who haven't raised their hand to see if they know and just don't feel the confidence.
Comfortable? Good.
Discussing.
Good. So she used the word formative assessment, looking for that. What else? Ongoing, looking for that. How do you know?
using the assessment to guide your instruction is probably good at.
Absolutely. What do you do with that formative assessment? Well, I analyze it. Remember we talked about analyzing earlier. We wanted that in the resume. We're analyzing it and we're using it to build instruction. What do my kiddos need? What do they need? Okay? Good answers. These are close and dear to my heart. Anyone that knows me or what I believe in at the Early Learning Village, what we built around students. How do your students know that you care about them? How do they know?
There's actually several ways that they would know, starting when they first enter the classroom, because every kid can get a high five, a hug, and is greeted by name, but also by maintaining high expectations. They know
Absolutely.
that I believe they're capable of a lot.
Absolutely. You got to believe in them. You have to greet them. How else? Give me some more answers.
Overwhelming positive encouragement, even if it's the littlest things. I really like when you wrote that being the correct way.
You know, research tells us that every student that we have to correct or use a negative comment, how many positive do we need? Need four. Need four. So that's a constant bringing that positive in. Well, how do the children's families know that you care about them?
Communication.
Ongoing communication. What else? Conferences. Yes, we, in elementary at Nicholasville early on, now this is something in preschool we've always done. We've done home visits, but in elementary, years ago we did home visits in elementary as well, especially through primary. Having
Students will go home and talk about.
Yes, absolutely. Making certain that their day is so enriched that they go home talking about school, they go home talking about what happened in class. Doing those parent education nights, having those parent conferences, absolutely. Families inviting them in, right? Be sure you ask questions. Before you go in, have 3 to 5 questions ready to go in a nice folder, okay? Be sure that you don't ask about salary and benefits during the interview. It's happened multiple times. Don't ask about time off. It's not a good idea. or promotions. You should be able to find all the salary information on the district website. During the interview, do ask about the school's vision, their priorities, but you're going to have already researched that, so you're already going to have that. You need to determine if it's an inviting climate. You need to work somewhere that's inviting, and you need to work somewhere that you're going to be happy, because if you're happy, kids are happy, and we want kids happy. Can you tell if it's a positive place for children and adults alike? Think about, are you going to be able to tell? Are you going to be able to tell, and you want to be certain of that? So when you end the interview, typically the interview team will tell you what the next step is. Finish with a confident, positive note. You can briefly and genuinely express how interested you are, if you're still interested, and express your appreciation for the opportunity. Thank you notes, yes, that's a yes. Please write a brief, personalized thank you. It's fine, like as soon as you leave, to send an email, but send a true thank you note. Last word of advice. I need your Facebook password before I can hire you if you're not on Facebook. I need you to join and post a bunch of personal stuff. Be careful with Facebook. Please be careful. And all of you in this room, as far as I'm concerned, so I tell my kiddos, my big kiddos, just like you, get anything that you don't want your mama to see, and any of your grandmama, granddaddy, if you don't want them to see it, get it off. Get it off quick, because it is something that is just commonplace now when you go through the interview process. It will be looked up. All right. So there you go. Thank you, guys. 801.
What am I doing?
Thank you so much.
Thank you.